before vegan, before plant-based, there was ITAL. And on Saturday, July 15th, it's the ITAL Food Fest. ITAL is vital.
My name is Paula Herlock, and welcome to another episode of Dimensional Dialogues, where we get into the nitty-gritty, into the depths and dimensions of different areas that we find interesting. Now, today we're going to be talking about entheogens. Entheogens as a pathway to elevated states of consciousness. And I'm doing that because perhaps a year and a half ago, I was asked by someone in an interview what I thought about plant medicines. And you know how I can get, like I know everything. I spoke with great authority about the fact that you don't really need plant medicines. You can achieve it all through just pure meditation. I have now lived to eat those words, and I have in fact taken some different plant medicines, and I wouldn't even say I took them experimentally. I took them because I had hit a particular point, and there were some solutions that I required. And my friend Kenny, who is here on this call, said, "Well, Paula, you have nothing to lose. Why don't you try to utilize it with a view to solutioning the challenge that your conscious mind state is not allowing you to solution?" So I went ahead and I did it, and it was quite an interesting journey. So what I've done today is that I've invited both Ken and Haynes, and Ken is my friend of 30 years, and he's a shaman of Sacred Earth Healing Center right there in Montego Bay. And my new friend Daniel, who I just happened to be meeting so many people that were telling me about Daniel, and people were telling Daniel about me, and then we finally met one day on social media. No, believe it or not, that's how we met. And since then, we've all been just having wonderful conversations and growing each other and interacting with each other, and it's a beautiful thing. I find that I am very fortunate to have just the most wonderful resources around me. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today, and welcome to what can be an interesting conversation. Now, there are no rules in this conversation.
Already.
The main rule is that we're going to be speaking very candidly. I'm going to ask some basic questions. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong. Each of my guests here today are looking at entheogens from their perspective and from their experience, using it personally, and also from their experience facilitating its use with persons who want to use it for different reasons. Okay, so I'm going to start off with Ken.
Okay.
Ken, give me an idea of when you started using plant medicine, what kind of plant medicine you have used, and your opinion on these plant medicines.
Okay, thank you for having me, Paula. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here.
Thank you, Kenny.
I would begin my path in the year 2000, so that would be 23 years ago, as far as a way of life and as a path of learning and self-development. It wasn't a recreational effort at all. It was a path of self-discovery from the beginning for me. More?
Yes. I mean,
Oh, okay. I
well,
began in the light of the warrior's way. If you're familiar with the writings of Carlos Castaneda and the teachings of Don Juan in that series, the Mexican Aztec pyramid builders, I had been raised in a Sufi mystic culture from the age of 14, but had no kind of additional, even caffeine was against the rules back then in the 80s for me.
Right.
So in 1995, when I released those rules of behavior and religious pathways, I began to experiment and to seek. And I've done all. I've done yoga and martial arts. I've fasted, and you know, I've done all the modalities. When it
Yes.
came to my ayahuasca visit
Mm-hmm.
and introduction to DMT,
Mm-hmm.
I finally got to see the things I had been teaching about, the things I had been instructing, chakras and auras. They were things that I knew I had memorized, but I hadn't seen
Yes.
what was the story all about. So there's a lot of parroting going on where we're taking cultures and explanations and expectations and third eyes,
Yes.
this goal to find a third eye and to do stuff with it.
Yes.
It comes from a narrative. And we
Yes.
have plant medicine that will give you a journey today. It doesn't matter what you believe. It matters if you're willing to take the dose. You
Mm-hmm.
have a few hours to
Yes.
witness that which can be seen on the inside of the consciousness.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Kenny. And as you can hear from Kenny, as you will hear later as we go along with Kenny, Kenny is kind of a little bit of a cynic in terms of having experienced
Yeah.
every modality and realizes that most of them are narratives.
Yeah.
So, yes. All right. Thank you so much, Kenny. Daniel, your story is a little bit different, but I want you to come and tell us the whole story in terms of all of your near death experiences, because I think it's very useful for people to have that kind of context, because as we go along in the conversation, I think it will help a lot. So go ahead.
All right, first let me say hotep to everyone. Peace and love to all the item. All right, so thank you for having me today, Paula, and Kenny, blessing to the eye.
Mhm.
So for me, I think my journey to understanding of self started many years ago. So I remember reading a book when I was about 16, and it posed a question. And the first question it asked was simple this: who are you? And up to this day, I'm still seeking to answer that question. I have bits and pieces of who I am, but as I get older, I learn so much more about myself. So I am going to approach this topic today from the perspective of trauma and how trauma interferes with how you see yourself. Like I would break up my life in sections. So my first part of my journey of self-discovery in my early years was full of trauma. So when you grow in an environment when you can't settle to know yourself, then you feel fragmented. So instead of growing attached to everything and everyone around you, you actually grow internally. So you basically learn not to attach. So as you get older, that version of you which may have experienced trauma continues to hide itself. So that's why most persons, as they get older, they realize that they're disconnected from that child within. So it's like they split and create two different personalities. Right? For me, it took me a long time to understand myself. Like most of us, like for myself, I've always been a nature person. For some reason, anytime I go outside, I've always felt like a part of the environment, a part of the trees. I
Yes.
used to talk to trees. I still do
Oh,
now. Yeah, so it's like there's an entire disconnect. Like one of the earliest known name for creation or Nate was Nitter, NTR,
mhm.
Inter. It depends
Okay.
on how you pronounce it. So I am over the past few years, I've learned how to reconnect to that. So I also strongly believe that our ancestors are never far from us. They're always around us. I will share an experience, what I've shared with you, where on numerous occasions where I'll share this a few. So I have met in a few car accidents, what contribute to traumatic experience.
Mhm.
I remember one night in 2000, in 1999, I was stabbed, pronounced dead. June the 6th, same year, I met in a car accident where damaged the entire half of the side of the body. The bus ran about 100 meters, turned upside down with me inside of it. My hands were split open, I was bleeding out. And there a present came inside of the bus and said, "Don't worry, you're not going to die." So, so I've always had a close experience and walk with the divine, which is in me. So the more I learn about me, is the more I learn about what is inside of me and how that is interconnected with everybody else. So we have learned in many ways how to disconnect based on our past experiences.
Mhm.
So, based on not only entheogens or what persons call plant medicine, I also agree with yoga, meditation. So, it depends on what modality someone uses because there is not a one cap fit all.
Mhm.
So, there's different things that somebody can use to reconnect with self. So
Yes.
the priority or the journey is a journey of understanding who you are. And once you
Right.
start understanding who you are, you understand where you are from. And
Okay.
once you answer that second question, you understand where you are going. So the sad reality is most of us are we are led by our senses. And that can be misleading because your eyes can betray, your ears can betray you based on the different experience or allow your mind to wander over the place. So anyway, I'm just looking forward to this conversation, and that was my
Yes.
little brief
All right.
interaction.
Very nice. Very nice. So at least we've now set the stage. Kenny with his multiple, uh, backgrounds in different modalities, where he started in Sufism, no substance to being able to try all the substances, and Daniel with his trauma growing up. No, I know most of us have had traumas, right? So, Kenny, I wanted to just ask you, what is the nature of your experience with, for example, I know you do cannabis, and I also know that you do mushroom. Can you tell me about how both of them, how you experience both of them?
You're muted, Kenny.
Oops, sorry. Kenny, I think you're muted.
Sorry, you're right. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yes, sorry about
All
that.
right, all right. Okay. I said yes, I can do that. And beginning with cannabis,
Mm-hmm.
I would describe my relationship to cannabis as a feminine, comforting, um, ex, um, digestive system, body relationship, a functional relationship that's friendly and harmonious with my body, with my feelings. It makes me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Mushrooms, I don't enjoy the feeling in my body.
Mm-hmm.
Mushroom body feelings are a challenge for me. But the experience overall of mushroom to stop the work, to stop the personality. Cannabis enhances for me a current persona, one of my personas.
Mm-hmm.
Mushroom stops the world, it stops personality, and you return to an individual that you were born. You see, you can't create an individual. An individual has to be essential, but you must create a person. A persona must be created. So, as a person is born, we have a couple of years before a mother tongue starts painting the world. To an infant, the world is a flat world. Everything is here. There's no depth. Mushrooms return you to that world briefly. And when that world stops here, then you're free to roam in the realm of your own consciousness.
Excellent, excellent. And what form how do you take your cannabis?
I extract plants, flowers, so I'm constantly surrounded with the pure extract in oil form.
Mm-hmm.
And I smoke it, I drink it, I make massage oil from it. It's involved in every kind of aspect you can imagine. My personal use, I mostly smoke.
Right, right. So just for the record, Kenny, you are a supplier of the oils that you
Mhm.
make, right? So people can reach out to you.
Yeah.
I will place the details in the description below. So
Okay.
persons who are in Kenny is in Montego Bay, Jamaica.
Mhm.
Danielle is in Kingston, Jamaica. So am I. I'm in Kingston, Jamaica. So we put all the details for everyone. Right. So thanks for that, Kenny. Danielle, same question. Do you use both? What
All
form
right.
do you use, and how would you equate the difference in terms of how you feel, how you experience it?
All right. So I'm into science. All right. So I normally break it down, read science. So
Mm-hmm.
whether when Kenny mentioned about the self, we based on our experiences, we can create what an ego, or ego, and the ego is always a fake self. So the
Mm-hmm.
ego will wrestle with against you, who you are. Um, so eventually, you're gonna get tired of the ego, and you want to experience life on your own. When it comes to using plant medicines now, it helps you to quiet your mind, and it also depends on which medicine you use. Like for example, cannabis teaches something from what mushroom teach you, or what ayahuasca teaches you, or DMT, or any other plant medicine where you use, or iboga. So there's a lot of different medicines out there one can try. So
Right.
each of them takes you to a different place. So it depends on the person who you're working with to know you in order to help guide you. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
we've spoken in the past, Paula, and said somebody cannot guide you to the end of the road unless they have gone to the end of the road themselves. So
Right.
somebody can only guide you to as far as they have been.
Yes.
So it's up to the person who you're working with to help you understand you. So if
Mm-hmm.
somebody has never found themselves, you can guide somebody to their self.
Got
Because
it.
once you find yourself, you realize that we're all interconnected at a certain at a different at a some will call it metaphysical level, also the language.
Yes.
So for me, I mushroom took me to a place where it allowed me to see to find me and have a conversation with me the first time I used it. I remember the first journey I took, which was about a few years ago. It reveals a part of me which was hidden. So the first image what I saw was a broken mirror. It was a mirror broken, and it represented me. And then in that journey, I saw a needle and thread what I was using to pull the different pieces of that mirror back together. That represented the integration of the fragment itself. So when I use medicine, plant-based medicine, it is a means of teaching me about who I am.
Right.
So once you learn to settle yourself, whether cannabis, whether mushrooms, whether ayahuasca, whether iboga, it is a means of teaching you about you. So in psychology, they have where you have the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, which is mostly where you are, and then you have the collective consciousness. So it helps you teach you about yourself, and then in turn it teaches you about your history, about where
Right.
you're from, and you have to understand your past to understand your present. There's a Sankofa word. There's a word, Sankofa. It simply means it's not taboo to go back in the past and retrieve what is missing and bring to the present. So that's what plant medicine does. It helps
Right.
you to go to the past, to heal from the past, so you may learn to live in the present moment. All right.
Right. Right. Thank you for that. Thank you both for that. Explanation of how you actually experience it. Now, the question that I had for many years after I heard about plant medicine was, if you have limited understanding of the dimensions or the world or the self, can you have an experience that brings clarity to you? And the reason why I ask that is because I know most of the people that are using the plant medicines are using them for support, for nervous system support for anxiety and depression. And what I do know is that when they use these entheogens, it does help them to clarify to some degree. But then I'm always worried that they're just ruminating around in the trauma and not really clearing it. So I'd like if Kenny could answer that question as best as he can understand it, and for Daniel to follow suit when Kenny's finished. So, Kenny?
Sure. I'll continue from where Daniel began about the nature of consciousness. And
Yes.
if you look at an iceberg,
Mhm.
there's only 10% of that iceberg above the water. And
Yes.
the same thing is happening with our consciousness. 90% of our consciousness is subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
So we are aware of what we're saying and seeing and doing.
Mm-hmm.
And we can make an affirmation that we believe or we want to believe. I am wealth. I
Mm-hmm.
am safe. I am love. That's done with the 10%.
Yes.
But you still have 90% of the subconscious that's speaking. And if that 90% is saying, I am unworthy because I am enslaved, or I am handicapped, or
Yeah.
I am lost, or I am
Yes.
not spiritual enough, or I am this, or I am that. So there's 90% to 1
Yes.
on subconscious unworthiness. So
Yes.
taking the medicines cannot clear up immediately
Yes.
that ratio.
Right.
The subconscious has to be spoken to, and the language of the subconscious has to support the individual. When the subconscious is mom or dad or the president or the pastor saying you're not worthy of divinity, then that's what's active in the
Right.
consciousness, and it will return to show
Right.
itself in another kind of way.
Right. And so that means it's a valid question then that I asked.
Okay.
Mhm. So that's a valid question then, because, and the reason why I asked that question, gentlemen, is because a lot of people are using the entheogens recreationally. And I wonder to myself sometimes if it's detrimental to them if they're not properly facilitated, you know, or if they have a facilitator that is not trained in the right way, or, you know, I want to know if it can be detrimental, or if the plant medicine meets you where you are and just takes you to where you need to go.
Okay. All right. So there's this thing called set and setting when it comes to a journey.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I work with persons, I work with them weeks before they do their journey.
Mm-hmm.
So we're setting the stage for where they want to go.
Mm-hmm.
Because your subconscious will take you to the place where you need healing. The
Right.
problem though is that most persons, once they start to the hardest thing for someone is to face themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that is going to be difficult. So that's why somebody will have a bad experience based on the fact that they are resisting where they need to go to healing.
Right. Right.
When Kenny mentioned about the unconscious mind, we are driven by our unconsciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's like we're speaking now on a conscious level,
Yes.
but most of our thoughts come from the unconscious realm.
Yes.
There's this thing now where science has finally caught up with us, where they talk about epigenetics. Epigenetics just means that we are our past, right? What is like your parents experience traumatic experience, their parents experience traumatic experience. It goes up to about 5 generations. So we experience the past based on our genes because it's passed down. So we not only heal on an individual level, we're also healing our generation.
Yes.
So when it comes to using plant medicine, for me, it's like some persons are using it like antidepressant, only to keep them stabilized. So they always have to use it every weekend or every month just to keep their mental state okay. So
Right.
that's why you have to work with a person to heal from the past so they can live in the present.
Right.
You have so much persons out there now giving you mushrooms, giving you ayahuasca, giving you this, and you always have to take it. Eventually, it's going to lose its potency, right? So it's like I teach my clients: certain doors to yourself can only be open inward. You
Mm-hmm.
can't force it open. So that's why you have a lot of personnel based on the past experience using the mushroom or using some other plant medicine. They're mostly living in their mind, not necessarily living in the real world. So
Yes.
the medicines are designed to teach you about you so you can function in both realities. Right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's my part to that one.
Yeah, okay. Excellent. Excellent. All right. So I will say when I first took mushrooms, I had an interesting experience. I was by myself in the house, and I was ready. Um, I had done. I had been in dialogue with Kenny, and I was really having some challenges around a particular issue, and it was nothing that my mental mind could navigate. Like, it wasn't a difficult question. It was an issue where I was standing in my way. And Kenny said to me, Paula, you have nothing to lose. So I was like, all right. And I went in, like, yeah, let me see if I can get this sorted out. And it was a very interesting session. I documented the whole thing with my pen. I was quite coherent. I was very clear. What I did observe was that I was much sharper than normal, much quicker than normal. So my mental and intellectual dexterity increased while I was under the influence of the mushroom, and I did in fact solution whatever the problem was. Right? I wasn't afraid. I wasn't. Um, and let me just preface all of that by saying I'm not one of those people who can hear a lot or feel a lot or see a lot, um, spiritually. And so this was actually my first experience of actually seeing colors and seeing dimensions and seeing interestingly outside of this dimension. So it was very interesting to me. I've known other people who they just need to have the mushroom near to their taste buds and they are having a whole interdimensional experience. Can you gentlemen tell me about why it is, as best as you can, that different people have different experiences? Some people have extreme experiences, and some people just have a pleasant, flowy, interesting experience. Is it the person or is it the variety of mushroom? Kenny, you go first.
I don't really have a definitive answer for that.
No, just your observation. Just your
There's so many
observation.
variables.
Mm-hmm.
There's a season of taking it. There's the person, where the person is the species differs, the strain differs, potencies, dosages, the freshness of the product, the setting. There's so many variables, and
Right.
I don't know, and I don't use the word healing much in my
No,
life.
no, that's okay.
Personally, I don't agree with people who I don't disagree with them, but I don't move forward in a conversation to help someone to heal anything. I only
Right.
promise to help stop the world safely for you.
Mm-hmm.
This world of culture, of words, of current understanding forced on you as a baby, this person of yours. I will
Mm-hmm.
help you put that person aside and keep you
Mm-hmm.
safe while that's going on. And
Right.
you just see what's there for yourself.
Got
Feel,
it.
be brave, open your heart, and just feel what's there and watch for yourself. And then when it come out of it, then I will share in some talking about. But I notice the healing happens.
Yes.
I've seen all kinds of miraculous, overnight, instantaneous, weekly overcomings of diseases and cancer, all kinds of things,
Mm-hmm.
epilepsy.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not why I give the journey. I give the journey in order to stop the ego temporarily, the persona, so that you can reach your individuality. Now, when your ego dissolves, it feels exactly like dying. So dissolve when your personality is gone, and the mushroom takes you back to 7 years old and 6 years old, and you started to lose a sense of where is Paula though? Now 4 years old, Paula is barely around. 3 years old, she's gone. And that feels like, oh my gosh, now I'm panicking. So when you have a sitter, the sitter recognizes you at that stage and
Mm-hmm.
now can speak individual to individual and remind you that you're safe, you are loved, and you are eternal. You can't go anywhere.
Right.
So right, and you're on medicine. This is temporary. Couple
Yes.
of hours, you're back to normal. And that's all I
Right.
do. Besides
Right.
that, I just sit there to be at my best behavior for 8 hours.
Yes. Okay. No problem. All right. Daniel, you?
All right. Yeah, man, for me, it's the same because you have to understand different strains affects you different. So
Mm-hmm.
it goes back to what I say, set versus setting, because each person may have a different experience when they use different plants. So
Mm-hmm.
it is up to the plant and the individual and the strain and the potency, a whole bunch of different things. Like I tell persons I work with,
Mm-hmm.
I can't fix you. You have to fix you. You have to
Right.
take the responsibility for fixing you. So if you go to anyone you're working with and the person say that they can help you heal, be careful of that because healing is an inward journey. It is like it is a reconnection with who you are because the greatest teacher about self is self, right? So we have to understand that. So when it comes to whether you use ayahuasca, whether you use like for I do know most persons use ibogaine or iboga for treating addiction. So I
Mm-hmm.
am aware of different plants what is used to help persons heal
Mm-hmm.
from different things what they are experiencing.
Right.
So I am just keeping space. I am just helping you find you. Um, so I use different medicines based on the individual and also based on knowledge because I do know that when it comes to the
Mm-hmm.
brain needs enough time. If you give the brain enough time, it will reset itself
Right.
because a lot of persons just don't feel safe in their own body. So it's getting comfortable. So my one of my job is not only working with you on a spiritual, a mental, but also on a physical level. So I have to reconnect those three because they're disconnected based on the past. The
Right.
greatest dangers are the greatest thing that we face is the past because most of us still are presently living in the past. Like, for example, you are now 60, you're now 50, you're now 40, but you're still connected to the past. The past is still holding you ransom. So all
Mm-hmm.
I do is sit and allow you to go back to that place. Feel safe enough to speak to that version of you and bring it to the present so that you may move to the future.
Right.
Because a lot of persons think that the future is a couple of years from now. No, the future is this moment. It is what you do today transform the next second. So
Right.
all I simply do is allow you to learn how to live by a breath at a time. You can't
Ex-
manage a day, just a breath. So that's what I do.
okay. Excellent. Wow. Beautiful answers, gentlemen.
I like to add a little bit of something to my answer. I
Sure.
want to distinguish between a horizontal journey and a
Mm-hmm.
vertical journey. So,
Okay.
what I call the horizontal journey is the things that we do in the world, our careers, relationships, marriage, divorces, family, everything that happens in the world.
Mm-hmm.
What I call the vertical journey is the journey of being, of returning to being as you're born. You're born the owner of one planet. When you were born, I'm here, I own one planet Earth. And then parenting said, no, not only do you not own the earth, you only own the room. You don't even own the room, you have to share the room with your siblings. You
Right.
own nothing. Not only do you own nothing, you're nobody. You have to be educated for 12 years in your mother tongue to be worth something. Finish high school, and then, so all of this narrative is putting divinity in a prison, and then we forget. And then we think I'm Ken and I have to fix Ken. I'm Paula. Of course, Ken and Paula are neurotic. Of course, Ken and Paula have issues. We're neurotic. We're made neurotic by culture. But that has nothing to do with the vertical journey because as long as you are growing in awareness, you're able to see from a higher perspective. Now you can navigate and stop making the same mistakes that lead to the suffering. It's not about not making mistakes, you got to grow. But now you can pick your battles better because you've elevated in awareness and sensitivity. Your heart can feel
Mm-hmm.
instead of just analyzing with the thinking. And
Right.
that's where you win.
Right.
Feelings over thoughts.
Very interesting. Very interesting, Kenny. All right. I want to ask this question because most of the times that I've spoken to people, they've done 2 grams, 3 grams, but then there are people who are doing 0.5 grams daily. They're taking capsules and They say it just makes them feel mellow. And then recently I heard that some people are doing 7 grams. And I was like, okay, I want both of you to just give me an idea of about what you've observed about doses, because I don't think there's any wrong or right with plant medicine. Plant medicines, the origins of plant medicines are indigenous. And of course, the indigenous shaman knew exactly how to do it so he could get the best result based on the particular scenario that he needed to address. But what has happened with Western civilization, I notice we're just going to take things, and I don't want to use misappropriate, but kinda. And so we have our Western civilization has their own presets on what a dose is. You know, for me, the most annoying question when I'm describing to someone how to take some herbal teas is they're like, okay, so what's the dose? What's the exact dose? And I'm like, listen, when I'm taking some soursop leaf, I just take 3 leaf or 5 leaf or 10 or 9 leaves, and I just put it in the pot and boil it. And I don't know of anybody that has overdosed on a leafy green tea. Is this the case with mushrooms? Can you overdose, or does it have to do with the dosing? Tell me whatever you need to tell me.
Daniel, go first.
All right. So there is no, I would say you cannot. Let me just put this. I don't think you can overdose, and that's just my personal opinion. The
Mhm,
dangers though is this is for persons who are doing high dose and are not
mhm,
able to manage that, that's very dangerous because once you go in that mental state, time
mhm.
stops. Please
Right.
understand, 1 minute is like a year. It just depends. So time stops in there. If
Mhm,
you're fragmented and you are
mhm,
lost within your own consciousness,
mhm.
imagine feeling like an eternity inside your own head. That is dangerous.
Ah.
So the person who is guiding you must understand where you're at and what doses to recommend. I would not recommend high doses for somebody who feels dissociated, who don't feel real. I wouldn't
Mhm,
recommend high doses for somebody who's fragmented to the point where there's different parts of them speaking to themselves. Because once you go inside of that space, it's amplified. There is no barrier. Imagine being locked in a box for eternity. That will drive you crazy. So a lot of persons can come out in many ways worse than how they came in.
okay.
It's like after you go through a journey, the brain is rewiring itself. So
Right.
for some persons, between reality, between the physical and the, let me say, the spiritual world, you're
Mhm,
walking a plane. And it's like I tell most of my clients,
mhm.
don't make any major decisions at least 6 months until after the journey, at least 3 to 6 months. Because most persons come out, it's like you can see the big picture to your life. You see
Yes.
every single thing. And the
Yes.
problem is when you come out, I'm going to divorce my wife, I'm going to quit my job. So I said, wait until your brain resets itself because you
Got
are
it.
going through the integration process. So I work on three things: deconstruct,
Mhm.
reconstruct, and integration.
Okay.
Integration is the key. You have to integrate these new knowledge, what you are getting in. If you
Mhm.
don't integrate them correctly, you do a lot of harm. So that's why I
Right.
work with the different persons. The
Right.
next part of the journey is simple this is the preparation before the journey. You
Mhm.
heard I mention about set and setting. Like
Yes.
for example, certain foods, cut it out of your diet because it's a physical journey as well as a spiritual journey. We're
Mhm.
talking about frequency here. We all vibrate on different frequency. So when you eat certain food, those food and different things you're taking actually blocks the body, right? So
Okay.
there's a lot of different aspects of
Yes.
journey you have to understand. So that's why you
Right.
have to know who you're working with because
Right.
it's the mind, the body, and the spirit reconnect in alignment.
Right.
All right.
Right. Right.
All right, Kenny.
Thank you. Um, I would say begin with the end in mind. Establish what it is that a person is aspiring to achieve by the journey, period. And if that aspiration is not realistic, then make them know from the beginning,
Mute your mic, Paula.
make them know from the beginning that that expectation is not realistic. I'll give you an unrealistic expectation. I want to take enough mushrooms so that I no longer suffer because I'm suffering and I'm depressed and I'm sad. So, how much do I have to take so that I'm not sad? There's no dose for that. There's no high enough dose for that because a person who is sad is pinched off from reality, pinched off from the reality of freedom that is real, of love. That is the situation that we're in it, we're made out of it, we're breathing it, we're sharing. It's love. So when you're out of love, it's not because you're broken, it's because you are pinched off from it. So if a person who's also pinched off from love shares any dose, it doesn't matter the dose because you're sharing from the blind leading the blind. But the good thing about the mushroom is you don't have to, it doesn't rely on the quality of the bearer of the fruit. If the person sets themselves up in the setting, in the quiet, in the alone, in the dark without stimulus, then healthy psilocybin mushroom, maybe 5 grams for a 180-pound person and under, 5 grams is going to take that person to the mirror. And that's all you can do. But when a person reaches a mirror and they see this beautiful fountain of light and sparkle and beauty and exquisite beauty, if they say that must be Jesus, because I couldn't be so beautiful, that must be Krishna, Shango, Abatala, start naming all these made up deities because you can't see divinity in your own eyes. When you were a baby, you could be it. And then we're taught to look at others to see, am I doing okay? How am I doing? So children start looking around for approval. So as long as you're looking for approval, there's no dose high enough. There's no modality. Meditation is the key. Without settling down, focus, then you are not able to reap the benefit of the journey because you could not watch it carefully. So a journey of any dose without meditative lifestyle as a background is going to be a challenge. Whether it's a dose of money, of mushrooms, of marriage, any dose of anything without meditation is a different experience with a centered person who is breathing, surrendering, and allowing themselves to let egos be ego and don't take it personal in this ego to ego interaction with our species. Stop taking it so personal and relax.
Right, very nice. Thank you. Well, we're just about to wrap up now, gentlemen, but I want to ask each person to just, for the persons who are listening to this and are considering entheogens, maybe give me an idea of the kinds of persons that entheogens can in fact help, or, yeah. Daniel and then Kenny.
Okay.
All right, so I think antigen can help anyone. I'll just put it this way, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is like we all have receptors in our brain. So what
Mm-hmm.
the plants does is more it binds. So it's like there's this in the cannabis. There's this. It's called the endocannabinoid system.
Mm-hmm.
So the cannabis has it, and your body has it. So
Right.
it fits and binds with it. So it just depends on the person.
Right.
But I would more recommend if a persons who have been, as I said, I specialize in trauma. So it is one of the tools which is used to get the person out their own way.
Mm-hmm.
So you can use plant-based medicines. For one sitting, it's like doing 5 to 10 years of talk therapy, right?
Okay.
It's very intense. So I would recommend, from on my aspect, for most persons who have been living in trauma for many years and feel fragmented and don't feel real, it's used to bring you together so that
Yes.
you can now start to live within this moment. It's like majority of persons who I think the entire world has experienced trauma, And that's hold on, my light just went out. So I think
Okay.
majority of persons have experienced trauma, and
Right.
based on those experiences, we see the world in a particular lens. And because of that lens we wear, it disconnects us from reality or disconnects us from everyone. So
Right.
based on using the plant now, it helps us to reconnect with self and in turn reconnect with other persons. All right. So that's my
Yes. Yes. Excellent. And Kenny?
I I recommend the journey as if your life depends on it. I recommend that if you have had a human experience and have never had the psychedelic means psych mind, delic manifested. If you don't know anything about that 90% of your consciousness, then you're doing yourself a disservice. So I would say at least one journey per adult is a must in this lifetime, or if not, it's like you never had sex before, but you're trying to understand this orgasmic reality of what sex all about. But not
Yes.
a journey to fix yourself, but a journey to explore with curiosity, with a sense of enjoyment, of fun, of health. Like right
Right.
now, you're going into trance right in front of us. You're yawning. Your vagus nerve has been activated. You've moved into theta wave speech, and you haven't touched the into the gym directly, but you're getting contact from this conversation and Danielle and our bloodstream. So you see the power of these mushrooms is
Yes.
global and international. So what we potentially can do and will do as a global community, this this mushroom journey is going to create the miracles of the pyramid days and the walls of Jericho days. But first,
Yes.
we do need meditation. We do need to love first. We need to return to self love. And I also highly recommend microdosing, a quarter gram you cannot even feel for a few
I agree.
weeks because it builds neuron repairs. We've watched it on microscopes repair actual neural connections. So new pathways that if you take a new loving attitude into your next few weeks, you can grow even new pathways that are specifically for love, as opposed to the ones you put for defense. Most of them are for self-defense pathways, fight or
Yes.
flight pathways. Now you can build love pathways. Open your heart, and with an open heart, now you are in the game again.
Right. Right. Very interesting. Very
Right. One
interesting.
one point, Paula. Just to
Mm-hmm.
touch on what Kenny said, it
Yes.
helps to reset your default mode network. We all have a default mode network where we have been taught early how to function,
Mm-hmm.
and I've seen your own self-defense mechanisms will sabotage your healing. So
Mm-hmm.
what the medicines do is to help reset that mode so you can experience something new. All right.
Right. Right.
30
Very good
seconds.
point. Yes. Go ahead.
30 seconds of what sabotages healing. Misery is rewarded from birth. So when baby is happy in fed, well fed and changed, baby is sitting there very happy. Mom goes and does chores, dad does things, no one pays baby any attention. Baby starts sending telepathic messages to mom, come touch me, come hold me. At first, mom is getting it in the early weeks, and then it starts getting disconnected. So baby says, well, I'll cry. Crying brings mom right away. If I have a tantrum, mom and dad and uncle comes. So then we develop this habit that misery, the squeaky wheel, gets the oil. So the more we complain about being sick and broken and things, we think that divinity is going to hear us and manifestation is going to give us more stuff and pay our bills for us.
Mm-hmm.
So the roller coaster ride, to be frightened halfway to death, is part of human nature. That's why people overdose on purpose, because they want to go to the point where they can say, well, I went higher than anybody else went, and it's a competition. But that's
Yes.
a different world. That's not the world we're not even involved in
Thinking
that
about
world.
that.
Yeah.
Right. No, no, we're not. All right. One last question.
Okay.
For those persons who believe that entheogens are drugs and it's a gateway and you shouldn't do it because it's going to be a gateway to drugs, what would you have to say to those persons?
That conversation really could only happen between the person who has tried it
Yes.
and now has an objection from a subjective experience. But
Right.
from just observing,
Mm-hmm.
I would just allow that person to really go on. Really.
to go about their business.
They're not, because this world is a world that you're invited to. You can't just step into this realm, to this dimension. There are guardians for this dimension to keep it pure and clean and safe. So you can munch a bunch of mushrooms and never get invited anyway. You munch a bunch of mushrooms, you may just see some swirlies, some geometry, and never get connected to the great teacher.
Right.
You never get to stop the world and time travel. You time travel right in front of me. That night, you went back, you fixed things in the past that you knew would affect the future. You knew you had the ability to touch the entire universe of existence, that you're touching it.
Yes.
You knew it for sure.
Yes.
And you went into operation. You had some things in mind to get done.
Yes. Right. Okay. Wrapping up, Daniel.
All right, for me, listen, man, everything comes from nature. So most of these synthetic drugs, look where they get it from. So they just isolate a compound and put it one side, and don't understand when you take one ingredient out of this and put it here, you actually negate what it's supposed to do.
Yes.
We are organic beings. We need organic things. So the first pharmacy or supermarket which was created, it's still outside. It's still the best.
Yes.
It is what the divine created. It don't need no man intervention.
Yes.
So it does a lot more harm than it does good. So I'll just put it, let's leave it there.
Right. So in a nutshell, I think what we can conclude is that the entheogens have been a part of humanity from the beginning of time.
Yes.
And for whatever reason, Western society kind of made it taboo. It's only for this, and only the hippies take it, and only those people take it. But it's really there for everyone, and is actually a better alternative than to be taking laboratory manufactured antidepressants, suppressants, sedatives, and so on. It's
high
better
blood pressure pills ruin your
Yes.
kidney, your pancreas, your liver.
Right. So it's better to have an experience with entheogens to see how you can bring yourself back into equilibrium, mind, body, and spirit, than to be taking the drugs, the real ones that are over the counter or by prescription. So is that what we're saying, guys? I don't know.
That's what we're saying.
That's what
I'm
we're saying.
Take that one big dose, come to me, and I will hold you and keep you safe for 8 hours.
Right. So,
But
ladies
you owe it to yourself to see what's
Mhm.
under all of this, the
Right.
invisible realm that is generating this realm.
Yes.
You owe it to yourself to see that.
Yes. Parting words, Daniel.
Life is a journey of self-discovery.
Mhm.
It is discovering who you are.
Yes.
Once you understand, once you find yourself or rediscover yourself,
Mhm.
your journey continues after this. The greatest fear that man has is a fear of death. But when
Mhm.
you remove the fear of death, you're eternal. You're just
Yes.
reconnecting to your thing.
Yes.
Just remember, when that infinite spirit entered into this finite body, it lost consciousness of itself.
Mhm.
So once you discover yourself on this journey, rediscover yourself, you realize that this thing continues forever. You'll be able to see the entire universe when one just view everything. So you
Right.
no longer see through your eyes. You don't see with your eyes, you see through your eyes.
Right.
All right. So
Right.
peace and love to divine
Wow. Thank you both.
Peace and love.
And for the record, for those persons who are going to be watching this in June and in early July, both gentlemen, I'm going to be so presumptuous as to say that both gentlemen will be at the Ital Food Festival, and they're going to be in the Wellness Experience Jamaica booth.
Yeah.
And you're going to be able to meet them, and you're going to be able to perhaps even set appointments with them. Who knows? They may be offering mini experiences, but for those persons who are going to be in Jamaica, you should come, meet them, so that you can have a conversation and ask questions that I never got to ask here, or other challenges, ask about challenges that you might be having, because both of them are facilitators here in Jamaica. I've worked with both of them. And so, I think they're both excellent resource persons. And so, if you're in Jamaica, please visit. Otherwise, I have placed their details in the description below, and you are able to get in touch with them directly to get their support, to get instructions and so on. Of course, they're professionals, so of course there are fees involved, but you get to speak to them directly. So thank you again for joining us for this very interesting and trending topic. I would say to everyone that's watching, give yourself the opportunity to have this experience so that you can know, because this is what we're all about. We're all about understanding this dimension that we're in and all the other dimensions that exist. And this is why we have dimensional dialogues. Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
It's been great.
Thank you,
Okay, peace.
gentlemen.